Andy, ordinarily, when you go to somebody and ask, hey, do you have anything to do with this guy, Lev Parnas, and what he was doing? Nope, had nothing to do with it. Then you get a tape like this. The next thing is a knock on the door and a set of cuffs. The president is not telling the truth about the association. Relevance in this context.
Well, it's yet another bold-faced lie on the part of the president. And at last count, we're over 16,000 or something, according to the Washington Post. So how significant that is, I'll leave that to your viewers to figure out. I think the real significance of this video, though, Chris, is it goes a long way to bolstering the credibility of Lev Parnas on this whole story. Parnas is a guy with deep issues in his credibility. He's got the outstanding indictment, which includes a count of false statements. So there's all kinds of problems. But he is able to bring this sort of documentary, or in this case, video, to the table that shows that, at least in terms of these events, Lev Parnas has been telling the truth. And of course, the president has not been.
Always odd, Shan Wu, when the indicted guy seems more truthful than the president of the United States. But here's the good news. The House managers didn't bring it up. And therefore, the president's defenders didn't bring it up. In fact, they did the opposite and said, these guys have no proof of anything. The president supposedly liked it. What did you think?
I thought that they did a weak job. They did what they had to do. Strategically, you don't want, as the defense, to leave that evidence from the prosecution sitting with the jury, the American public, the senators over the weekend unanswered. So they had to open with something. But, you know, when you look at the advocacy scorecard, House managers won hands down. I mean, Cipollone's opening started with the right point, which is you got to go with factual innocence first, but he immediately rambled into process. So generally, I thought they did what they could, but really, Chris, their performance reflects lawyers who have a very difficult micromanaging client that they had to satisfy. You can see the particular talking points that the president wanted them to do. That really interfered with their ability to put on a strong, coherent defense.
Hey, Andy, you know, and he's got a reason to feel good. I mean, the Republican senators were talking today. And yes, we had Romney, and the media has been running with Romney saying, I will maybe likely vote for witnesses. But there were a lot of senators coming out and saying, nope, no need. They blew holes in just 2 hours today. They blew all these holes. They told us the other side. Very different feeling today.
Yeah, I think that was no surprise there whatsoever, right? We talked about this the other night, that essentially what the defense has to do here is provide those Republican senators some sort of talking points that they can use to justify their vote against witnesses or justify their vote of acquittal. And it seems that some of them have already found a few nuggets they can cling to in today's presentation. I did think, though, Chris, it was notable that now we've only heard a few hours of their presentation. They certainly have a long way to go. We'll see, maybe this comes up. But what you did not hear today was anyone make the defense that this president did not do this, would never violate the Constitution, respects the powers granted to him and the other branches under the Constitution, and would never do such a thing. You didn't hear that, the sort of moral, patriotic defense that any innocent person would put on under these circumstances. I thought it was really a noticeable decision on their part not to do that.
So I need to know from Caitlin what the White House is putting out about how the Republicans feel about it in the Senate. I need to hear from Shan what he believes the defense is going to have to come out with on Monday. And I need to hear from Andy about what they have to be worried about in terms of questions from the senators. Day 5 of the Trump trial was a flip of the tables. It's with the defense now trying to accuse Democrats of interfering with elections. Let's discuss the impact and what it means about where we're headed. Andrew McCabe, Shan Wu, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what's the White House saying about how Republican senators were affected by today?
So far, they feel pretty good. They feel like so far the essential message they've gotten from these Republican senators is that they are inclined to acquit the president, and now they just need to make sure they give them enough so they feel comfortable doing so. And that's why you see that their goal is going to be to poke holes in the Democratic narrative that you saw laid out for these 3 days. They really want to sow doubt about this, and that's why it was questionable why they only went for 2 hours today. Some people were wondering why they didn't offer a little bit more of a defense with more of a framing of exactly what this was going to look like. But we've spoken with the president president's legal team, they say that's coming on Monday, though of course that's still going to be a question whether or not they answer enough to satisfy those senators to keep witnesses out of the trial. And right now that's essentially been the White House's #1 goal, and they are not 100% confident they're going to get there, but they feel pretty good about it.
I'm surprised they didn't have Dershowitz go today, because of all the stuff the
Yeah.
president wants to hear, that bookish stuff about what the Constitution is, you think he'd want that last. But let's say they do come out fists of fury on Monday, Andrew. I know that it sets up to people at home like, well, this is it. They can say whatever they want, but they really have to be careful, because after they present, then the Chief Justice will ask questions as processed through the parliamentarian, but they come from the senators. And what is the concern there?
Well, the concern is that that's essentially a rebuttal hiding in plain sight. So the question period, which can go as long as 16 hours, I believe, it's not actually an information gathering function. It's more of a point-making function. So each side will strategically place questions that they want to address with senators from their respective parties, so that it will essentially give the House managers an opportunity to get up and address some of the points from the defense presentation that they disagree with. It'll also give the defense the same sort of opportunity to get up and respond to those Democratic questions.
Shan, do you think it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts, or are they going to swing one big stick?
Well, I agree with Caitlin. They've been trying to poke holes in it, but as a defense counsel, you can't just sit back and poke holes hoping to sow reasonable doubt. You have to offer a theory of innocence. What they really need to do to give those Republican senators really a good hook to hang their coats on is to present a coherent theory of what the president was legitimately doing. Spend a lot of time talking about what he wasn't doing wrong. They need to talk about what he was doing right. Now, that may be challenging for them, but the answer would be something along the lines of he's conducting foreign policy in his own unique Trumpian way. You may think it's incompetent, you may think it's too unconventional, but that's what he was trying to do, but it was not corrupt. They got to offer that coherent theory of innocence.
I still have to believe, Andy and I have talked about this a lot, and I get it. I've done my homework. I understand abuse of power. We've read the Founding Father stuff, but Andy, you and I still believe if they had the word bribery written all over that first article of impeachment, they would have had a more compelling case. And now they've allowed the defense to argue, all master's degrees aside who are out there listening, no crime, Andy. That's going to be a problem, or it's going to be an advantage for the defense.
I think you'll hear a lot of that on Monday, Chris, and I agree with you. I think the House managers certainly had a lot of grounds that they could have hung their bribery reference or bribery charge on. They decided for whatever reason to do that. It's fundamentally changed the conversation around that article to become one of the lofty, what does the Constitution really require, rather than a nuts and bolts, was this bribery or was it not? I think there's plenty of reasons you could say what the president did was both soliciting and offering a bribe, both of which are, of course, illegal. But yeah, I think that was an opportunity missed.
Andrew and Shan, thank you so much on a Saturday night. Caitlin, nobody's been working harder than you. I appreciate you doing this for us tonight. Have a good night.